Hello, everyone. This is Lindsay Nelson, your host, um, and welcome to another episode of Office Hours. I'm joined today by Steve Hunt. He will be my co-host, and Jamie Campagna, data entry specialist or manager and coding manager at MedReceivables, which is an Infinix company. Today, we're going to talk about how AI can be applied to different charge entry and billing workflows, how it can help, um, you know, provide AI-enabled document intelligence, extract charge data faster, route exceptions for review, and shift staff from manual entry to quality control and auditing. But it's not a set it and forget it. The human is always going to be required, and Jamie will give us the operator's view of how the challenges of adopting some of this technology, the complexity, and where the humans are still necessary. So to jump into it, Jamie, would you mind talking about how you were doing it before, some of those manual processes, and some of the specific details regarding that?
Yes, hello everybody. Um, so document capture works best generally for those clients that are utilizing paper documents such as paper requisitions, reports, and they don't necessarily have the staff to support them entering it themselves, or maybe they don't have a system set up in order to enter it into a billing system by themselves. Um, what it really does is it helps expedite the billing process and allows a higher level of quality control to improve our efforts in delivering cleaner claims with very little um, in, errors. So the way that the process worked before is we would get manual documents, requisitions with demographics, manual reports with the billing components such as CPT codes or ICD-10s. And then we would have, human efforts entering those into the system. Within that, since it's such a manual process, there's always documents that may be missing components such as insurance, policy numbers. If it's handwritten, sometimes there's things you can't read. So not only is the effort trying to input the data and making sure the human isn't mistyping anything, it's also trying to identify and find those accounts that need a little bit extra attention and research in order to fill in the blanks of the missing required billing components. With that, a lot of the effort goes into just getting the items into the system, and then you can have another team come in and QC what your manual entry representatives did. Sometimes timing due to deadlines and, insurance timely filing hinders that second part of the QC process because you don't have a whole lot of time to have the document go through 3 layers of checks in order to ensure that we didn't make any typographical errors. And also, you want to be able to review some of the high level common insurance errors that you know are going to hit, such as CCI edits, MUE edits, potentially ICD-10 edits that are your most common. Those are items that you want to be able to spend time with in order to submit a cleaner claim into the clearinghouse and then therefore eventually into the insurance. It can expedite payments because if you send a cleaner claim, there's no denial and the insurance tends to pay rather quickly if it's a clean claim. So with document capture essentially eliminates the need for somebody to have to sit there and manually enter the information and somebody sort through the documents to say, this is a complete claim versus an incomplete claim. For terminology purpose, complete claim would mean all the billing components are there. A clean claim means the insurance isn't going to deny it. There's less likely a chance for the insurance to deny it. So document capture will extract the information from your documents and it's generally more accurate than a human typing it. So your efforts of your team transfer from manually having to enter the information into your QC. So now you've beefed up your QC team, which allows a lot more time for you to analyze to make sure document capture didn't transpose a number. Document capture was able to capture all the pertinent information correctly and accurately. And it also allows your team to spend a little bit more time on those high level insurance edits. A lot of things that the onboarding of this is a little involved. However, it's not a burden that we would put to our clients. What we do is we work with our clients to become experts in their data, such as how are your reports laid out? How are your demographics laid out? Is there handwritten information? Is it all typed? Is it a standard format? All of that is taken into consideration when you want to set up the document capture, because document capture is just, technology that is an assist to the human. So we have to kind of train the AI and the document capture on the specific report format. So if you do have multiple styles or formats that your practice utilizes, that's okay. We become the experts in it, and then we troubleshoot and figure out the best way in order to introduce document capture to achieve a faster processing in order to expedite the payment process on the back end.
So Jamie, it sounds like there's been some nice changes in the last since you started implementing this, but it sounds to me like the data is still coming to you in the same way from the client side, right? So there's no change on the client side, right? So in the old world, those documents would come to you, and the human beings would validate the document type, extract the data with your manual efforts, right? And now those documents are still coming in the same way, or does the client have to change anything?
No, the client hasn't had to change anything.
Okay.
Sometimes if we see that it could potentially assist, we would discuss with the client if there's an opportunity to adjust. However, if we can work with the existing process that the client has, that's best case scenario, because we don't want to add more work to our clients.
Got it. So you really go through a process of taking that document set from the client, and I'm just going to use some layman's terms. I'm not sure I'm right, but you're going to feed that into the AI engine and say, hey, learn how to get this data out of here. Is that
Correct.
accurate? So you kind of
Yes.
go through this process of teaching the AI agent the type of documents that are coming in, right? And then it starts to then extract that data right out of the documents, is what you said,
It
right?
does. And through extracting, you can set required criteria.
Okay.
And so if all the required criteria is met, then it can set it up as a ready claim that's ready to be exported from the document capture into your billing system.
Okay.
And then if there are specific report types or criteria that's missing, document capture can kick that out to a separate queue, and you can have your team focus on those claims, those accounts that are missing specific billing components.
I gotcha. So it's really doing a triage. It's finding data in the documents, but is it doing a triage of it to see if it's got the complete information? And if it doesn't have that
Yes.
complete, then that's now what your team focuses on. So rather than that team having to go through 100 documents and do data entry, now maybe they're looking at 6, 10, 20 documents out of those 100 that have problems, right?
Correct.
And so
Yes. And it also expedites that process in a way of you don't have to try and analyze and look for the cases that are missing the billing components, because the answer is basically given to you via the document capture.
Nice. So it's like it's doing that work on the front end to feed your team the more specific cases that need need that human oversight, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Are
And
you
it
at,
allows for your team to kind of become more experts in the billing because you take the grunt work of just the typing the information. And now your team can really focus on more high level tasks, such as QCing high level insurance errors that you've deemed you want to review, as well as potentially, depending on your relationship with the client in your contract, reviewing CPTs and ICD-10s to make sure dictation matches what you're billing.
got it. So it sounds like you have some level of flexibility then in terms of deciding what the AI does with the document. So in certain cases, if it's missing data, goes to a human queue. But
Yes.
what I think I heard you say on that last one is even if the AI does find what it needs, it may be a particular type of claim or case that you still want human oversight on. Is that fair to say, or is that did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So, depending on how you receive the information from your client, sometimes there's what's called addendums to your initial report. And depending on how the client works their addendums, sometimes they send you only on that second round of report that has the addendum section on it, they only send you the added CPTs. Some clients may send you the entire billing again, and then you have, a potential of duplicates, which you never want to double bill in
Right.
insurance because then it can mess up your patients' EOBs and all of that. It's not fun. So you can create exceptions specific to billing types. So say you can tell document capture, if you see the word addendum, I want you to extract the data, but also kick it to a work queue for manual intervention. There's also the ability that you can identify a specific case number or account number, specimen number, and document capture has the ability to not store as in storing data, but store that case number. And it can even flag it to say, hey, this case number came over before. I'm going to extract the data, but I'm going to still kick it out for manual review because you might want to look to see if you've actually billed this before. And then that allows the human to go in and look and go, okay, this got flagged because it's a potential duplicate. Let me double check my billing. If I already billed 4 of the CPTs, I'm only going to allow 1 CPT to, go through as opposed to rebilling the whole thing.
So you're really combining the intelligence of the AI agent with your billing knowledge to route things to the appropriate place to make sure you get a clean claim and get paid quickly. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you see some cases, I don't know if that's the right word, cases or documents flow all the way through without a human touch?
Through document capture, yes, they do.
So you do have some certain cases when a whole bunch of documents come in, bunch of 100 cases. Some of those can flow if they have all the data they need, and if they
Yes.
doesn't meet a certain special case criteria, that can flow all the way into the billing platform and be ready to submit to the clearinghouse. But other cases get routed to you either because they're missing data or because they're a special case that require your oversight.
Right. So even though it goes through the document capture without a human intervention, once you extract it from the document capture and that data is extracted through various means, it would have to be whatever avenue your actual billing system requires. So most billing systems require like an HL7 file of some type that is an ADT or a DFT file. Once you extract that from document capture, you put it into your billing system. At that point, every claim would probably be reviewed at some level if it hit a specific insurance edit.
I got you.
So but in addition to that, there are some that will go through your billing system that don't hit any type of insurance edit. Like I was saying before, CCI edits, MUE edits, ICD-10 edits, that will go straight through without any manual intervention at all. So it does expedite it. those insurance billing components, like the errors, the CCI edits, the MUEs, those types of things, there is a way to capture them in document capture and potentially kick them out for manual intervention, so that you can add the modifiers if needed. You can split according to the MUE. That could all be done through document capture, and then it would just expedite it even more into your billing system. So it's kind of just those insurance errors, they're always going to hit. It's just a matter of, in your practice, where does it make more sense to work it? Does it make sense to work it through the document capture, or does it make sense to work it through your billing system that already has like a scrub process implemented in order to capture those specific accounts?
So as you worked through it sounds to me like there's a process of working through I'm going to call it the configuration of the AI to suit this particular workflows of the client, right? That's such a technical exercise you're having it. And then as you start to use that new workflow, what has been the impact on the human beings? Have they been afraid of this? Has it been helpful to them? How does the human respond to now that machine doing part of the work that I used to do?
So I think there's always some level of hesitancy with change, especially when you introduce, robots or computer technology, especially if you have someone who's been seasoned within their position. However, I really feel that it's all in how you introduce the technology, and you really encourage your staff to become a part of it, and you include them in the build process, and you include them in knowing how exactly their position and their responsibilities are going to transform. A lot of people, when you tell them, you have the ability to grow in this, a lot of people get excited because they don't want to be sitting there doing the same thing time after time. But there are some people who are just kind of like, I'd rather do the same thing. I don't really want to change. And those people, I think, once you have them work alongside the AI, and they see that, oh, okay, it is actually making my job easier, not replacing, but it's helping me be a little bit more diligent and accurate in my job responsibilities, I think it tends to come full circle and they start appreciating it.
I would imagine they start to realize, hey, I'm adding more value here by the combination of the computer and what I'm doing, right? And then I think probably the biggest, and you've touched on this a number of times, but the biggest and most important question is, how is that impacting the overall billing cycle for the client, right? What are you seeing as a result? You flow from completely manual, you configure the AI document capture, you're configuring these queues. Now you got humans that are elevating to a QC type role. What kind of impact are you seeing to the end result of that? Net collections, errors, reworks. What kind of things do you see there?
So I think the number one is, when you talk about the staff, is there's less staff stress on the staff, because there's an expedited process that helps us meet our deadlines
Okay.
better. So there's a lot of times where we'll get, our packages, and the client will say, hey, we were running behind. We need you to expedite this. Can you still meet the deadline within 2 days? And now you have, 500 accounts sitting on your desk, and maybe like 6 or 7 people, and you're just all looking at each other like, what?
All right.
Because the client must have been rushed. How many, incomplete billing components am I going to find? How do we start, dividing and conquering this, especially if you have multiple processes that you also have to tend to. So the expedited for staff in the department is really about relieving that tension of the stress of the deadlines. If you have a department, my department, we've been together for a while, we understand the stress, but we also take a lot of pride in our work. So I know when my staff there, when they have to tell me, hey, I'm not going to be able to hit this deadline because A, B, C, or D, they're very they get troubled by it a little bit, not a whole lot, but they're just like they feel defeated. And I'm like, look, like this came in, that came in, this came in. You told me that's great. We can, regroup. We can reprioritize here. We're still going to meet it. Don't worry. But I think with the document capture and the grunt of it being taken away, it really reduces the stress of your staff, and reduced stress on staff means happier staff. Happier staff means higher, better production.
Right.
Even though for my team specifically, the quality that they deliver is for me beyond.
Right. Right.
For the company, it's kind of piggybacks off of that because the company can see a higher number of accounts being processed into the billing system, a higher number of accounts turnaround time being quicker, being sent to the insurances. And again, you can take a lot of the focus off of the front end and potentially add more focus to your denials processes or your back end processes, such as correspondence or, those areas, because you're always going to have denials, even if you think like you sent out the absolute perfect claim.
Right. Right. Right.
So
But
it does help the
go
spread
ahead.
the wealth of
Yeah.
the resources that you have.
Right. So you're saying that the client didn't have to change their front end processes, but by us introducing some higher level of efficiency through technology, we're able to meet their needs much quicker and to a greater extent. And
Yes.
and you're having less stress on your staff. And I totally agree with you. Less stress means happier. Happier means higher productivity.
Yeah.
So that's good. So you're seeing some good positive outcome or impact results to the customer as a result of uh, implementing these more efficient processes.
Yeah. Yep. And
But
I
you,
think the other plus side of that is you can have a quicker turnaround time on the accounts that are missing the billing components, and the clients really appreciate that because sometimes if we received it and it maybe took us like a week and a half to really review it and gather our, issue accounts and go
Mhm.
back to the client, sometimes it's like, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you, is this do you see it from a specific set that we could maybe adjust? So your analytics and feedback to the client on their process overall could be expedited as well, because again, your issue accounts are, right in front of you as opposed to
Highlighted.
having to.
So again, I'll rephrase just to make sure I understand. But whereas a batch of documents came in before went to a human queue, it takes you a while to work through that queue. But the AI agent works on those not instantaneously, but quickly surfacing to you those items that need additional information. So
Yeah.
your turnaround time to the client on, hey, this is a problem is faster.
Right, right.
Awesome. Which then allows them to resubmit that, and then you can work the claim faster, right?
Yep. And then it also allows us to work with them to try and troubleshoot, like, are there certain things they could change to better the quality, or are there gaps that we can assist you with, and what
Mm.
are your pain points? Can we take that on for you to help alleviate your stress? Because again, the less
Yeah.
stress for clients, the better.
Yeah, yeah. So you're saying you're getting better visibility into trends that are problems because your turnaround time is faster and you're able to identify those things more quickly. That's interesting. I hadn't really thought of that angle to it, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, what other insights, if any, would you have about the process you've been through, right? I assume it wasn't decide to do document capture on Tuesday and then by Thursday you have it done. You've got some sort of process of evolution there. Um, what's your comment on that? I mean, how was that a reasonable effort you went through, or was that challenging mentally, or was that pretty straightforward?
I think in the beginning it might have been challenging, trying to pre-plan and figure out which process to start with because this was brand new. And there's two different ways you can approach that. You can try and take your most complex and send it through. But I think really when you're starting out with document capture and AI, the best thing is just to get a baseline and to utilize the most simplest process that you have to be able to develop a baseline process that almost all of your processes can go through. Once you have that baseline process, you can at least get the ball rolling on one or two clients, and your team at that point, as opposed to them manually entering, your team can assist in troubleshooting the document capture and identifying where the document capture is lacking and where we need to spend more time training the document capture. And also where we need to create more exception criteria for document capture to kick out. So there's definitely a level of process QC again, QC not only the quality, but also QC the process to make sure like we expected 10 of these to kick out because we knew 10 of them were missing insurance or we want 3 of them were addendums. And then at the end you go, okay, no, it only kicked out 5. What happened to the other 5? You know?
Right.
So all of that is a lot easier to handle because obviously production still needs to move forward. You can't halt it just because you're trying to become more efficient. So in the beginning, it is a little bit of a heavy lift, but again, that burden is generally not on our customers. We take that on because we're the ones troubleshooting and we're the ones trying to create a more expedited and efficient process. But once you get through the preliminary setup, the rest of the clients or the rest of the processes kind of fall into place and you just have small tweaks that you have to do.
And I assume that amidst all that, especially in I'm honing in on you talked about create a baseline with a low complexity, let's call it issue or scenario. That gives your human beings the ability to see the process in practicality from end to end. Because it's one thing in theory, and it's another thing to say, hey, let's watch it through. So sounds like they were able to get some ability not only to see it happen, but to provide input to where it needed to be tweaked to make it as efficient as possible.
And really, it's very important, like you said before, the morale with the staff alongside the technology, because honestly, without your staff, they're really the experts. I tell my staff, you guys are the experts at this. You're my eyes. If I don't have you telling me something, I'm running through the forest blind and then I'm going to slam into a tree.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes that tree is a complaint that I don't want to run into. So it's really making them feel, you know, important, which they are important. They're important to the process. Like without my staff reviewing this, and a lot of times they'll come back and go, I don't like processing because I'm at such a high, like above it from a eagle's eye point that I don't necessarily see the details, that they'll sometimes come to me and be like, hey, you forgot to do this or you forgot to do that. And I tell them like, that is why I need you guys looking at this. It can't just be, you know, me or the team that actually built the AI. You guys are the experts. I need you guys in this.
Yeah. Really speaks to that, you know, combination of the absolute importance of that human intelligence combined with the artificial intelligence to create the optimal output, right? Yeah, nice. Well, Lindsay, that's all I had off the top of my head to ask Amy about. But if you have something else, or if there's any questions that came in while we were speaking, that we can address that.
Yeah, so it looks like some of the questions I see just 2 in here, and both of them are regarding, you know, adoption really. Um, and that was sort of discussed, but I'll just read off one of them and see. And I think I can add maybe a little bit to it. So the question is, how do you help staff adjust when technology changes their role from doing the manual work to auditing, validating, and managing exceptions? We've kind of covered this, but maybe even just getting a little more tactical, like how do you think about training programs logistically, and how does that change versus like onboarding, someone or training someone up
Right.
before versus now, and how that's changed, and in addition to how you kind of adopted this
Right.
technology. So full picture view, how do you enable your
So
staff?
I think that there's a benefit to brand new set of eyes looking at something versus someone who's looked at it for years. Again, a lot of my staff have been with me 10 plus years. We're very seasoned in what we do. And because if something needs to be populated and you're used to populating it, as you populate it, you kind of tend to think, okay, you spell it out as you're typing it to make sure. You know it needs populated. I think that one of the biggest adjustments is if something needs to be populated, you see it's populated, you're going to kind of like go, okay, populated, move on. But it's not necessarily about, is it just populated? It's, is it populated and is it accurate? I think that's one of the biggest adjustments that you have to be sympathetic to when you're taking your representatives who are actually doing the grunt work and trying to turn them into QC reps. Because I know for myself, if I know something needs to be there, it's there. I'm going to assume it's correct. But it's really allowing them and changing the culture from the nose to the grind, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, to, okay, it's actually okay to sit back, relax, and breathe a minute and read and comprehend and actually see what you're actually looking at. And then making sure that it's correct. The reason why like a brand new set of eyes would be beneficial is because they're going to have a lot of questions and they're going to be very cautious and they don't know the process, so they're going to ask a little bit more questions that your seasoned reps may kind of gloss over because of the knowledge that they have. So it's kind of it's a balance. I would say the more detail oriented the staff you have, the more feedback that you're going to get, the more quality feedback that you're going to get. As far as training somebody to become more detail oriented, I think it's a little hard to do. It just depends. You have to know your staff and where they're going to excel. I know for me, I have a variety of staff, and a good manager needs to know where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And I'm not going to load you with a lot of stuff where your weaknesses, even though I've spent a lot of time training you, because one, you're going to get frustrated, and two, I'm going to have to go back and recheck it constantly also. So if you know that you have somebody who isn't necessarily good with the visual part of seeing and QCing, well, then I'm not necessarily going to give them the QC part. I have this whole other process of the issues where you know how to get the billing information, you know the resources, so I'm going to put you there. So it's really matching your staff ability and their skill set to the proper skill set that now is being transformed and created through using document capture. I don't believe in just, trying to shove people into a position because it never works. It causes stress. I don't like stress. I don't like putting stress on my staff. So if it really doesn't work and we've all given it a valiant effort, there's always different avenues in order to still make sure that they're included in the process.
That's really
Well,
cool. I like how you're thinking about kind of just people management best practices, setting your team up for success, and just kind of how the technology fits into those typical, right, like
Right.
things that I'm a manager, we as managers think about because we care about our teams and we want them to be
Right.
successful. And we know they're all brilliant, just in maybe different ways. So
Yeah. And you just have to figure out how to bring that out. And you have to listen to them too. Like if they're you know, you do have some people who complain to complain, but then you do have
Mhm.
people who have constructive feedback to where they're telling you, okay, we've tried this, it's just not clicking. I don't want to hold up the process. I'm not really sure. Like, I'll do it if you want me to, but it's going to take me, you know, a little longer. So you have to be sympathetic. And, you know, I don't have anybody who I say like milks anything. My staff will be the first to tell me this isn't necessarily working. How can we adjust this? They're very good at troubleshooting processes, and I'll lay something out and they'll come and they'll be like, really? Like, this can be done a lot better. So again, it's more about knowing your staff and making sure you're matching their skill set with the new and improved process. And when you work with them individually or in a group, I think that they um, will adjust easier to that. They'll feel more appreciative, and so they're willing to go, you know, a little bit further for you and assist in making this also the pre-planning and the goal. Like I always talk to my team and say, okay, this is my vision, this is where we're going, where I want to go, where do you want to go, you know, and how
Mhm.
can I create the process to make it fit your vision of where you want to be. And all of that wraps into, you know, happy staff, happy, not just staff, happy people, because I mean at the end of the day they're people.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that plays into this other question a little bit, but it sounds like you know, they're lucky to have you because you
Oh,
did the
thanks.
work to make sure that you knew the technology, right? And as a leader, were informed about that and brought that to the organization and saw the vision for how
Right.
this could make a change. And by painting that real picture and being that sort of AI forward leader, you were able to kind of get your staff to come along even if it may feel uncertain or, some
Right.
people are really excited about AI, some people are a little more skeptical. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really important to have leadership that can articulate why it's valuable and does that
Right.
work ahead of time. So, yeah, that's
And I think it's
awesome.
also important for them to see you in down in the weeds too. It's a brand new process. It's a brand new, you know, environment that we're stepping into. I think in those situations as a leader, you have to take the first step and kind of go, okay, come with me. And then once you get
Mhm.
in there and you kind of feel it out, then you kind of step back and you know, let them shine and go, okay, this is what we're at. This is where we need to do. It's your turn to shine. It's your time to shine, show your skill set, and you just be kind of like the supporting role in that. I always say when crap hits the fan, I'll be in the front deflecting it. When that glory light turns on, I'm in the back and it's shining on you. So, because for as much effort as, you know, our staff puts into things, um, you don't necessarily want to, you know, nickel and dime them on human error mistakes.
For sure. And so this I think we pretty well covered this next question, but maybe the last part we could just clarify or, feel free to just reiterate. So the question is for organizations that are still doing a lot of manual charge entry, where is the best place to start with automation without overwhelming the team or creating more work in the short term? So I think for me, the part that stands out is just that creating more work in the short term. That's a pretty common thing with AI adoption. It can be a challenging for change management and it can feel like extra work. So how do you kind of mitigate those risks of it impacting productivity? I think you touched on it earlier, but
I
yeah,
think the most important thing is you don't outrun your staff. Meaning you don't go faster than what you know they're going to be able to keep up with. That's going to be the number one morale killer is you have this great expectation and you have the tools to do it. But again, you pack on the stress because you don't allow the time for the QC and review. Um, I think really you have to look at the processes and the volume and look at the deadlines that you have. So if you have already built in billing lag, then the best part would be to potentially work on the most recent accounts first, because you know you may have, like, for whatever reason, a billing lag already built in. And with document capture, it can also eat into that billing lag, because obviously you have document capture that can expedite things. So a billing lag may be that you agreed with your client, we received it next week, we'll process it within 2 weeks. You know, that gives time for reviewing the data and all of the items that go into that. So if I were to get something this week, that may be the stuff that I start working on through IDC, because then I can make sure, okay, that stuff is still going and we actually have 2 weeks to work on this data to go through document capture. And now, you know, if we need to bring in a team to help, or now I can prioritize and grab people and say, okay, for 2 hours, you're going to work on this. And it's okay because we have enough time to reprioritize all of our other processes to make sure nothing gets left behind. I think the strategy is really knowing your process and knowing your workflow and grabbing those initial items that don't have to be done tomorrow.
Right, right. Yeah, that's important to really, I mean, to have that structured process, you have to be doing things in an organized way. Otherwise, you might just make everything worse, right? If you
Exactly.
don't have it organized to begin with, it's hard to make improvements. So,
Yes.
yeah, it sounds like the team was already very well organized, and this is just taking it that it's like we say in tech, optimizing, right? Taking that
Yes.
next step further. So, okay, Steve, any other questions on your side before we
I,
say goodbye
I,
to everybody?
yeah, no, I don't think so. I think we covered the topic really well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamie and Steve, for coming on today. And thank you to everyone that attended and the audience. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.